I send out the link to, I stream this class out to a different YouTube channel each day. And so when I send you the link and I say join us in class, that link will take you to the YouTube channel. And the reason I do that is because I know some of you may get in a few minutes later and you'd like to see the whole thing. And even though being in the private Zoom is better because you can get your questions answered and stuff like that, it's sometimes easier to go to the YouTube channel if you want to watch it later or something like that. Now, if you want to watch everything all together later, like if you want to just check out, I think we've done about 500 trainings in this class. We started at the beginning of 2024, and we have gone almost every single day since then. So I'm gonna guess that's about 500 days, something like that. So if you want to see them all, there's a class in the Black Business School where everything's housed. I can't remember the URL though. I gotta go find it, and I'll send it to you guys and give you a discount if you want to go and get access to everything. So anyway, so first thing that's interesting right now is that the stock market is kind of crashing today. So today's kind of an interesting day in the stock market. As you guys know, I'm a dip buyer. I always talk about buying the dip. And so that's going to be fun to discuss tomorrow when we go through the stock market breakdown and everything else. In case you want to know what I'm buying, I bought some shares of Robinhood and Tesla. Tesla is all the experts I've been sort of consulting with and paying attention to love Tesla. They think that they have just such a huge advantage, and if you can get past the politics, again, if you don't like Elon Musk, I get it, whatever, it's up to you. But if you don't care, you want to just go get the money and be where the money's at, there's a lot of indication to say Tesla has a lot of upside and that this down cycle is a great opportunity to own it. No guarantees. This is a long-term play, but this is where I'm putting a lot of my money. All right. So anyway, I'm sending out the text message for you guys now. It'll usually just say something real simple. Dr. Boyce Money in the Morning is starting now. Also, don't forget that Dr. Alicia is doing her Mental Health Monday tonight at 8:30. I think she's going to talk about chakras. She's really into chakras and stuff. And so if that's your thing, then you can come along. If you want to join Dr. Alicia, get notifications when she does things, just pull out your phone, text the word love to the number 87948. So text love to 87948. And Dr. Alicia will notify you when she's about to do her thing. All right, so I want to ask you all a question really quickly. Give me a yes or no in the chat. How many of you believe that men that at least half of all men are uncomfortable or feel awkward when a woman is doing better than him financially? Give me a yes in the chat if you think that this is the case. Give me a no if you think that this is all a bunch of fake news and a bunch of BS. And the reason I ask that is because I'm going to show you guys a video that I just saw. I put it on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. And on Dr. Boyce Finance, I shared this video that I thought was really interesting. And it involves a podcast called Hardly Initiated. And the brothers who made the podcast actually came out of the Black Business School. I like these guys a lot. They're very nice people. And they're very good at what they do. And so I was a little bit thrown off by kind of, what I heard. Not to say that they were wrong or right. I just really thought that the comments were a little bit strange. Honestly, I'd love to talk to them and find out exactly what they meant. And because I know them personally, I maybe I'll just bring them in or something, or bring them on my podcast or something, because I feel like these conversations sometimes don't get the proper nurturing that they deserve. I don't think that they are dealt with in the way that they should be. I really would like to see them dealt with also with some degree of science attached, right? There's research out there on all these things in terms of, how do women feel if a man does this? How do men feel if a woman does that? And I probably, I guess, know these things because my wife is a researcher in this area, right? She's written research papers on these topics. She's taught classes on these topics. And if you learn what's out there, like if you learn the science of good relationships, which is actually connected to the science of good finances, right? We've talked about this, that stable families is one of the keys. That's one of the hacks to wealth, one of the big wealth hacks that a lot of people seem to forget. And I think it happens a lot when you're young because you think relationships are all about who's the cutest and who, where you can have the most sex and stuff like that. And people forget about the long-term implications of relationships, the long-term investment aspect, like the fact that when my mother was older and still wonderful, but not the hot, sexy young thing she was when my father met her. she was laying in her deathbed, dying of cancer, and my father was sitting right next to her because they made this commitment to each other and stuck to it, right? And I think that it's interesting to me that there are not enough young people getting mentored by older people who can show them the other side of life, right? Like I'm going to say this really quickly. If you have a young person in your family that wants to be successful, tell them to find at least three mentors over the age of 50. If they're under 30, they need three mentors over the age of 50 that can tell them what lies further down the road. And because if you tell me, if I'm in a car and you tell me what's further down the road, then I can decide which path I want to take. Because a lot of people are just driving blind. When you're paying attention to your favorite celebrity or you're listening to your goofy friends that don't know what's going on, you're gonna just get a lot of bad advice. And I can tell you, I learned a lot from listening to older people talk about on their deathbed, like, okay, what are your biggest regrets? Right. I learned a lot from those conversations. Like, okay, when you're on your deathbed and you're about to die and you know you're never going to go home again, what do you regret the most? And so I would encourage any person that wants to be smart, right? Not everybody wants to be smart. Some people want to go through life and just make one dumb decision after another, or they just want to wing it, or they feel like because they're black they're supposed to screw their lives up, and then end up 50 years old saying, yeah, I used to be a knucklehead but now I'm getting it together. But I get it, but sir, you're 52 years old. I wish you had made that decision when you were 25 or something. Then that way you wouldn't have to play catch up. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying that a lot of us have family members like that. I learned a lot. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I learned a lot from uncles. A lot of my uncles who made the biggest mistakes in their lives, I learned from them. It was like, well, don't do what I did. And I'm like, I'm taking notes. I'm not going to do anything that you did because right now you're in jail, or you're broke. You're not happy. Like your children don't respect you because of whatever you were doing for the last 20 years. And I just kind of feel like it's time for us to educate each other in a multitude of ways. Like for example, in the Black Business School, we have initiatives like the Black Wealth Ambassadors Program, things like that, where we're encouraging you, we're giving you resources and support to teach your own people, to teach yourselves, right? But also, I think the same thing should be true in relationships when it comes to mental and physical health as well, because we got too many young people that are miserable. We got too many young people. Tell me if you've seen this. Tell me if you've noticed how many young people are online, depression, anxiety, stressed out, don't know how to get by financially. Anybody seen that? Anybody see this is like a trend. I think it's like trendy to hate your life. Anybody else notice that? If you're under 30, there's like at least a 50% probability, maybe 70%, that you're just miserable, unhappy, pissed off, and broken. I don't want you to have to live your youth like that. You're 27, man. You're supposed to be having fun. Come on, girl. You're supposed to be happy right now. You're young and you're cute. You ain't gonna be cuter when you're 47. So, like you're not gonna have as many options when you get older. How in the hell can you waste your life hating your life? Hey, why is it so common to spend our youth? If you're young, in my opinion, and some of y'all got young people in your family, bring them into the class. Bring them in because so they can hear this. If you are young and you cannot find your happiness, I'm gonna give you a homework assignment right now. Your homework assignment is to go find it. Your homework assignment is to find it. I talked to my youngest about the inalienable rights. The inalienable rights are, finish it up for me. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of what? Type in the chat. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? So I said to her, I said, well, we know what it means to have life. Some people, but really, some people are alive, but they're not really living. I said, but then also, liberty, we know what that kind of means. That's kind of freedom. But a lot of people don't have freedom because they don't know what freedom looks like. They claim they want power. They don't know how the hell you gonna get power when you can't even define it? A lot of people can't even define what freedom is, and they like we want freedom. Okay, well, what is freedom? Oh no, like no, you got to know what it is in order to identify it when you see it. Some of y'all walk right past freedom and opportunity and wealth because you never took the time to meditate and define what that really means for you. But then the pursuit of happiness. I said, I told her, I said, look, I told, when she asked me what profession she should pick, I said, I don't care what profession you pick. I'm not here. I don't think you should define yourself by a job anyway. I said, I just want you to be happy. And a lot of people out here are miserable. They hate their lives, and I don't want you to be one of those people. So happiness is something that must be pursued. It's not usually going to fall in your lap. You got to go find it. You got to go know what's going to make you happy. So I talked to a 22-year-old that I mentor, and I said, man, there is a science on happiness. Y'all, you do know that. You do know that Yale has a, how many of y'all knew that? That Yale has a whole class on happiness. Yale literally has a class on how to be happy. Did any of y'all know that? There's literally because well, would they have a class on happiness? Well, because there's a science to it. There's like a way that happy people do things that unhappy people don't, and that makes a big difference. So ultimately, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means that if you want to be happy, you got to kind of take that time to experience the knowledge of self, and then also get knowledge of the world, and then figure out where in the world I can go in order to find my happiness. So again, my advice to any young person that wants to be successful, and even any old person, is find somebody that's ahead of you that can explain to you what life looks like 20, 30 years down the line so you can make investments. I'm going to use that word investments repeatedly so that people who are confused don't think that we're not having a financial conversation. But the investments that will benefit you 20, 30 years down the line. Like I learned that investing in a good black woman at an early age meant that I learned from my father and my mother that if I invest in a good family when I'm young, that when I'm older, I have some high probability of having some people who give a damn when I'm laying on my deathbed in the old folks home. Do you understand? So your biggest investments are not in money, they are in people, but also even your financial investments. Hey, most of you who are over the age of 30 can remember a time where you probably kicked yourself when I told you that, if you just bought a couple $1,000s worth of Microsoft stock 25 years ago, you'd be loaded. If you bought a little bit of Apple stock back in the early 2000s, you'd be filthy rich right now. And it wasn't, again, it wasn't like Apple snuck up on you. You knew Apple was Apple back in 2002. You knew that even before the iPhone and all that. Apple was a big corporation. Everybody knew about Apple. They had a rivalry with Microsoft. So you could have bought just Apple and Microsoft and made a ton of money, but you weren't thinking down the line. You didn't sit down and meditate and say, gosh, I wonder what the year 2024 is going to be like, and I wonder what's going to matter to me at that time. And what things can I do right now that will, what investments can I make financially? What investments can I make in terms of people? What investments can I make in terms of my mental and physical health, such that in that year, I'm going to have a really great life. I'm going to really be in a good position. Because if you don't do that, if you don't plan ahead, then you won't. It's very difficult to find happiness if you try to get it at the last minute. It's like when I used to teach when I was on the faculty of Syracuse, I used to laugh when students would come in the day before the test and try to learn 30, learn 3 weeks worth of 4 weeks worth of material in 24 hours. I'm like, you're not gonna pass it. Oh my God, it's so hard. I've been working so hard. I stayed up all night. Stop crying to me. What are you crying about? You wasn't crying 2 weeks ago when I told you to start studying and you were chilling. You weren't crying back 3 weeks ago when you was going to the step show instead of doing your work. You weren't crying when your nerdy friend said, "Hey, let's go to the library," and you said, "Oh, girl, but you too serious. You always studying all the time." That you were fine back then. So why are you in my office crying right now? You're crying right now because you want to go back and you want to redo the past. You want to change that which you've already put in place. You want to recreate the destiny that you built for yourself. You chose to fail this test. You chose to not be prepared. And now that the consequences have come a knocking, because the devil always comes back and gets his ROI, he comes back and gets his return on investment. The devil will bless you, and then he's going to show up and ask for compensation. Well, now that you gotta pay the piper by failing this test, you're all stressed out and sad about it. And you were a victim, but you were also the perpetrator. The previous you was the perpetrator. The current you was the victim. The old you abused the new you. The you from 3 weeks ago who didn't study, who didn't go to the library, who went to the step show instead of actually sitting down and doing the work, is abused you who's sitting in my office right now. You're crying because of what the younger version of you did to yourself. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? And this paradox can go in both directions. Both directions. So the question is, what are you going to do to your future self? Are you going to abuse your future self by not preparing? Are you going to abuse your future self by not investing? Are you going to abuse your future self by not making a plan? Or are you going to bless your future self? When you 5 years from now, you look back and you say, man, I'm so glad I made those decisions way back in 2025 because now my life is good. Now I'm driving something nice. Now I'm living in a mansion. Now I'm living my best life. I just quit my job. My life is better. I'm able to provide for my kids because I made a sacrifice. You cannot reap a harvest if you do not plant anything. If you you cannot you reap what you sow. If you sow no seeds, then you will have no harvest. And so some people are confused, like, why do I have a harvest? Everybody else is living good. Why ain't I got nothing? Well, the answer is right there inside of you. Ask yourself, 5 years ago, did I plant anything? Did I plant seeds? If you planted no seeds, then you get no harvest. Now, let me hop into this one topic I wanted to hit on. I saw this video this morning. I woke up. I'm kind of mad at myself. I'm usually in the 5 a.m. club, but I slept like I was dreaming and stuff, and I woke up at 8:20 or something, which is just downright pathetic. Normally I get up at 4:30 in the morning, but it's okay though. I'm gonna forgive myself and I'm gonna get back in the gym today. But here, let me share something with you. This video that I thought was really, really fascinating. And I put it on my Instagram, and my Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. And by the way, just as a reminder, what I'm gonna do also for those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, I'm gonna give you all the link if you want to come into the Zoom. Let me see if I can grab this link. If you want to come into the Zoom, where like so that means if you put in a question, I'll see your question, stuff like that. I'll give you guys the link. I'm gonna put it in the chat of the YouTube channel for those of you that want to actually come into the Zoom. But just as a reminder, if I send out the reminder for class via text, I'm going to bring you to the YouTube channel because the YouTube channel is a place where the video will still be there, even if you come in a few minutes later, something like that. So anyway, all right. So here is the video. Let me see if I can pull this sucker up. It's basically a guy who is on a podcast called Hardly Initiated. It's a good podcast, and the guys who created the podcast, they came out of the Black Business School. So I ain't got nothing but love for these guys. And I, even if I don't understand why they say what they say, I still have a tremendous amount of respect for them. But I would love to talk to them because they really have to answer for what they were talking about in this particular podcast episode. I didn't quite understand it, and so let me see if I can pull this up. And this leads to a broader conversation about money and relationships and whether or not men should be or are or have any reason to be intimidated or concerned when a woman is doing well financially. So here, I'm going to try to share this. I'm going to hit share and I'm going to play this. Let me know. Give me a yes if you can hear this video. I'm going to play the video right now.
Look, she says, I got a good job. I make very, very good money. And she says, the only thing I need now is a man. It's like, yo, it's like, who wants you? Who wants you? You're right. Like, once you have achieved these things, you have unfortunately disqualified yourself.
Ooh, and shit.
And what it is these, and this is the thing. I'm not
Dude,
blaming
the
women.
women are going to hate him for that shit. They are going to hate him for that. I can't wait to put this shit out.
Number one, what does it mean for us to have all these conversations about what do you bring to the table? The woman say she bring everything and you say, I don't want you no more. What does it mean? Number two, women exceeding expectations and being all they can be is not a negation of your manhood or masculinity. If you feel that way, it is show that your shit is fragile. Number three, as a college professor, you know that studies showed that female college students will literally dim their light in order to appeal to their male counterparts because they recognize that men's fragile masculinity will make you where, man, I don't get to feel like a man if you know more than me.
Literally, she says, I got a good job. I make very, very.
Okay. All right. So let's stop right there. Y'all were able to hear it, right? Everybody's able to hear the video. All right. So yeah, I gotta ask the guys in the podcast about that one. They're very nice guys, and again, they came out of the Black Business School. So if you're a Black Business School alum, I'm gonna love you no matter what, even whether I agree with you or not. Um, Clearly, the comment was questionable, right? This idea that because you've accomplished these things, no one else will want you. And that right there is where that just that statement alone, that blanket statement is an incorrect statement. And the reason it's an incorrect statement is because when you're talking about a market, This is my thing. This is what I do. This is what economists study. All we do is we study markets all day. Dating is a market, just like the grocery store is a market, just like the job market is a market, just like the stock market is a market. And markets are moved by specific dynamics related to things like supply and demand, among others, right? So, for someone to say no one wants you because of blank, well, that right there is wrong. That's going to be wrong in every single situation, any type of market, because what that is saying is that's like saying that if I have a company that lost $1 billion last year, that no one's going to want to buy that stock. And that's not true. Someone will buy the stock. They're just going to lower the price that they're willing to pay for that stock. Do you understand? Like I could go into the stock market. And remember, dating's a market just like the stock market. And I could go find a company in my Robinhood app right now that has really had some financial problems. I don't know, let's say BlackBerry or something. I think BlackBerry was struggling. Let me see BlackBerry. Let me look up BlackBerry. BB, ticker symbol BB. Now, BlackBerry is a crappy organization. They've been losing money for years. They messed up because they didn't keep up with the iPhones. Their earnings per share is either negative typically or it's very, very low. But guess what? BlackBerry still has a market capitalization of $2.5 billion. That 2.5 billion. And if you wanted BlackBerry stock, you could not get it for free. It's $4.18. Now, mind you, it used to be much higher than that. It used to be as high as what is it? $116. So BlackBerry has seen a decline due to market conditions, but BlackBerry is still a stock that millions of people want to buy. Do you understand? It's a matter of the price. So the same thing that's true with the stock market is also true with the dating market. So if somebody says, if you are a man who weighs 400 pounds and you don't want to take baths and you don't have any money and you're kind of a mean guy, ain't nobody gonna want to be with you. Well, no, somebody, there's somebody for everybody typically, especially when you have a big liquid market like dating. There's billions of people on the planet. Somebody out there is going to still be okay with having that man as her man. Now, what it might happen though is that his stock price might drop, right? You put on the 400 pounds, you don't like to take baths, you ain't got no money. So the demand for you as a boyfriend, husband, whatever you're trying to be, might dip a little bit, but then demand and supply have this relationship where there's still going to be somebody somewhere who says, yeah, you know what, I'll still take that guy, right? So when people say ain't nobody going to want you if you do blank, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. And I tried to find a polite way to explain that to Kevin Samuels when he was here. He didn't take it so well. He was very offended by what I had to say. But I said, why would you ever say that a person in a specific category is not going to be wanted by anybody? Because that's never ever 100% ever true. If you say you're over 35, nobody wants you. I was like, well, number one, I was single at the time. I said, actually, I don't want to date any women under 35 because I like women to be smart and mature. But then number two, you just can't say that. That's just not true. So that's where I would correct the brother from Hardly Initiated is I would say maybe you shouldn't say no one will ever want you because I think you can say that's not what I want, right? I get that, but you can't say no one will ever want that. But then also the question then becomes even deeper. As a man, I would ask what why am I going out of my way to tell people that nobody wants them? Like why would I even feel the need to do that? Why would I if I have a preference? Like so for example, let's just start here. Let's assume that you are a person who says, you know what, I really don't want my significant other to make more money than I do. And that's your preference. I think it's your right to have that preference. I really do. Like if you want somebody that likes to wear purple socks on a Saturday, that's your right. If you want somebody that's or like how women will say, I when I was single, I remember hearing I would hear women say, when I did online dating like 25 years ago, because I couldn't do once I became known, I couldn't do it anymore. But when I did it, I would hear women politely say, "I'm sorry, but I don't date men over 6 feet, under 6 feet tall." That was their right, right? So just like it was their right to say, "I want a man over 6 feet tall," it would be my right to say, "I want a woman shorter than me." right? Because a lot of men want that. A lot of women don't. I could tell, just to tell on myself a little bit. When I was single, there was this really pretty lady who really liked me a lot. I think it was honestly, I think it was because of money. Because there's some people that just love money. And but she was like 6'2". And I was like, and now, mind you, in my mind, I've always believed I was 6'5". I do, but I still do. So please don't burst my bubble when you meet me. But people keep telling me I'm 5'8", but that's all fake news. They're just making things up. They're just like the Republicans and the Trumpers and the Democrats. They're making stuff up, right? But still, just in case I'm not actually as tall as I want to believe that I am, I personally felt like 6'2" was kind of weird for me. It was a little bit awkward. Um, did I ever tell her that? No, because why would what point would it be for me to make her feel bad about her height? But if that's my preference, that's my right to have that preference. Do you see what I mean, right? So if you have a preference, I think it's okay for anybody to have any preference they want. But in any market, when you make a preference, what you're introducing in economic theories, you're introducing a constraint. And so anytime you introduce a constraint, what happens is you get a less and less optimal outcome. You get a less optimal solution. So ultimately, if you really want to talk about whether you talk about dating or anything else, or even searching for a job, if I say, yeah, I really want to work, but I only want to work 3 days a week. I need a job that's 5 miles from my house. I need a job that has daycare for my kids. I need a job that's going to let me take off anytime I want. I need to make at least $400,000 a year, right? Every time you introduce a constraint in a mathematical equation where you're trying to optimize something, you're going to get a less optimal solution every time. Do you understand? You're going to get a solution every time that's going to be less optimal. So when you have women, anybody ever seen that? It's so weird. I don't know if I've never seen men do it, to be honest with you, but I've seen women that'll have a list of things. Like I had a friend who was really smart. She went to Harvard. She made $300,000 a year, and she's about 45 years old. She was looking for a man, and she had a list of 27 things that she needed the man to have for her to pick a man. And I said, "Huh, that's really interesting." I'm curious. I'm wondering. Part of me honestly wonders if you're looking for something that doesn't exist. And honestly, I felt like I was thinking that would probably be something better handled with your therapist because her father died when she was young, and I kind of wondered if that played a part in this sort of looking for the fantasy man. So what would happen is she would meet a wonderful man every 6 months, and then after 6 months went by, she would realize he didn't fit the 27 parameter list, and then she would move on to the next guy. But with that being said, though, it was one thing that went through my mind as a mathematician was if you have 27 constraints, then it's going to be really hard for you to optimize that problem, right? So really when you're picking or in any market, you want to really understand that every constraint that you introduce is going to limit your available supply, right? So when you pick a constraint, it doesn't mean you shouldn't pick a constraint. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have standards. Everybody should have standards. I think it's a matter of deciding which ones are the deal breakers and which ones are not. Just like if I do a business deal or if I go take a job, um, I sure there's lots of things I might prefer. There are preferences I might have, but if everything becomes a deal breaker, then I shouldn't be surprised if I end up unemployed. So same thing would be true in relationships. If everything is a deal breaker, then your deals will be broken. And and you'll just kind of go through this perpetual cycle of short relationships, 6 to 9 months. That's what the science says. The science says in the first 6 months, the phenylethylamine, dopamine, and oxytocin are really strong. So you're pretty much it's like your own drugs because you're having sex and you're having a great time. And then after about 6 months, it starts to wear off, and that's when you start to gain sobriety in the relationship, and you start to notice all the little things that get on your nerves. So about by the ninth to 12th month is when the relationship ends. And a lot of you probably know people that go into that cycle. I've studied this. When I wrote Financial Lovemaking, I literally studied the science of relationships because I learned early that if I don't learn how to manage relationships properly, I will never be able to achieve my goals. And this was me as a young black man, if I could not control the influence that a beautiful woman might have on me or things like that, I was never going to be able to focus long enough to actually get through school and start a business and do the things that I wanted to do. I did not want my um my male instincts to I didn't want to spend all my time chasing women to the point where I didn't have anything else. And you notice you'll see people that have that. You'll see people that just are chasing everything, always chasing the tail, spend their last nickel trying to get a new woman, whatever, and then their lives kind of become complex, right? Complicated. And if you notice, most of these billionaires, they got one woman. They ain't got 50 chicks. Mark Zuckerberg has one wife that he dedicated. He had a big birthday bash for her, and he's been with this lady since he was in his 20s. How many guys do you know who could literally be 30 years old with enough money to buy any building in New York City with the money in his checking account? Like literally, he's that rich. He's rich enough he could probably buy your whole entire block or a big 30% of whatever city you live in, right? How many guys do you know could have that much money at the age of 35 and literally walk around in regular clothes, focus on the career, and focus on his wife and raising kids? A lot of men can't do that because I think that for black men, especially, the celebrity culture influences us too much, and it makes us think that, well, because you now have all this money, you're supposed to have all these shenanigans that go with it. But most of the billionaires minimize the shenanigans so they can focus on accomplishing the goal. Right. So anyway, with that being said, another thing that's interesting about this is that if you look at the research, you will find that the relationship between or the connection between a woman's income and how men feel about that, it is complex. It's not as simple as we might think. Like we want to believe that any man who feels this way, there's something wrong with him and whatever. And there are men that feel that way, and that may not be the man for you. But there's research that kind of talks about how a woman's income level can affect how a man feels in a relationship, similar to how a man might feel if he's 5'8" and his girlfriend is 6'2". It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with her for being 6'2". It just means she might need to be dating a taller guy because Danny DeVito may say, this is a little awkward for me, right? So here is some research on this in case you want to know what the scientists say. Unless you want to listen to YouTubers, and that's fine as well. There's a study published in the journal Personality and Social Psychology that found that men's self-esteem takes a hit when their female partners earn more than they do. This is tied to traditional gender norms where men are seen as providers. So if you grow up with a mindset that says, as a man, I must be the provider, the main provider, the sole provider, the best provider in the house, then yes, it is going to be awkward when the woman comes in and she's like, no, I actually provide more than you do. And also if it comes with a certain kind of attitude. I talked to a really successful woman who was a corporate executive, and she said that one thing that she had to work on was that she was the boss at her job and she was bossing people around and telling them what to do. And she didn't realize she was also doing that to her husband. She would come home and be the boss in the house, and he just didn't like it. And what happened in this particular relationship, they did get a divorce, and she found out that her husband was, and this was predicted by a lot of studies, her husband had like 5 or 6 girlfriends all across the city, because he's like, well, while you're at work and conquering the world, I need to go places where I feel like a man. Now, again, that's not, I'm not excusing any of the behavior or anything like that. I think a good therapist could have helped them work through that. But this is what actually is shown in the studies, that a lot more infidelity occurs in relationships where there is that economic imbalance. And I think that what is also interesting is I wonder how much of that comes with the perhaps false belief or expectation that a person who has the most money subconsciously knows that they have a certain amount of power in their relationship. So then it kind of becomes another type of competition where you as a man are feeling like, gosh, she's really wearing the pants around here. She's really telling me what to do, bossing me around because she makes the most money. And maybe deep down she's offended by the fact that you don't make very much money. And that can really actually show itself sometimes. And it reminds me of like when I first met my wife. You guys know I was friends with her for a long time, and I enjoy being her friend. She's a, I think that she was. I think it's weird when guys act like it's weird when you are kind of in the friend zone. She didn't put me in the friend zone. I put myself in the friend zone because I think women can make great friends. Women are great communicators. Women are in touch with their emotions. Women are very smart people to talk to. I have better conversations typically with women than I can with other dudes. You get on the phone with dudes, sometimes it's a little awkward. The only dude I have a really good long conversation with is actually my friend Willie D from the Ghetto Boys. Willie is a great communicator, a good guy, and fun to talk to. Willie and I get on the phone and talk for hours. Everybody else, even my dad, it'd be like, you see the game yesterday? Yeah. What'd you think? It was good. It just like a lot of guys don't talk, and I learned to talk a lot from my mother. So I love talking. I think, so women tend to be better communicators. But anyway, one thing that I didn't know at the time was I remember my wife would get approached by like NBA and NFL players because she's always been just this gorgeous lady. I think she's the prettiest thing I ever saw. And I assumed that, that most girls would rather date a 6'5" NBA player with $10 million in the bank than some nerdy grad student, who's 5'8", who's in the library all the time. I didn't know though that my wife's preferences in men were driven by her father, who was a professor at Tuskegee for 30 years. So she actually liked the smart guy. She wanted the guy who was going to be the professor. She kind of had an issue with athletes actually. And it wasn't fair though. It wasn't fair because I think that in her mind, she thought that dating an athlete came with other baggage, right? Other types of attitudes and behaviors and a culture attached, right? And you know what I'm talking about. Starting with just, having 50,000 girlfriends all over the planet, having sex with everything that moves. So you're passing STDs to a lot of people. People don't talk about that, but that is happening. And then just all these other forms of chaos that kind of override the amount of money or status that he might bring, or the fact that he's 6'5", 240 pounds of muscle, but yet he's bringing this tragedy and this trauma in your life that you can never overcome. I saw that a lot when I wrote Financial Lovemaking. When I wrote Financial Lovemaking, I remember interviewing a woman who won the lottery. She ended up dating a guy who got drafted in the NFL after his junior year, and he played for I think the Seattle Seahawks, and he played a half a season, got injured, they cut him from the team, and next thing you know, she said, I thought that I was going to have this great life because I was married to this NFL player, but actually I had to work two jobs to pay the bills because he had no income coming in and he didn't want to go work because working was beneath him, and he thought that he would get a call from the NFL in any moment. So he would sit at home waiting for the NFL to call, and she said that when the NFL never called, he got depressed, and when he got depressed, he started taking more of the painkillers, drinking more of the liquor, and next thing you know, the relationship became very abusive. So she said, here I was. I thought I was going to live a Disney princess kind of life. And I ended up being an abused woman in a relationship where I had to work two jobs to pay the bills for a guy who was sitting at home drinking and taking drugs all day. So ultimately, what people I think that this is where wisdom and this is where mentorship comes into play. I think that a lot of us get led down the wrong road because we think all shiny objects are valuable, and that's just simply not true. So anyway, though, but I do think that my wife was unfairly biased against athletes, right? Because you can't assume every athlete is a womanizer or every athlete is going to break your heart and ruin your life. But that was her bias, that was her preference, and she had a right to have that preference, right? So the same way a woman has a right to have her preference, a man has a right to have his preference. And so her preference was an unfair preference, like athletes all do this and they all do that, which isn't true, right? Well, a lot of men, maybe they have a preference in the sense that they might feel that, look, when a woman's making more money than you, it becomes very difficult because a lot of women think they have more power than you, or they might punk you or whatever, or disrespect you. And I don't know how other men feel. I'm gonna just be biased and tell you the truth. I don't like to be disrespected. I don't. I don't care. My wife is a high flyer. She's got all the education. She's been kicking ass and taking names for many years. I don't consider that to be a threat. And I encourage other men to understand this. That doesn't make her a threat. That makes her an asset. That makes her an asset to you. So if you want to have assets in your life, then that's what you should have. You should have people around you that are accomplishing things. You don't have to be the Michael Jordan of your life and score all the points. You can have good teammates, and as long as you can mutually respect each other, then it becomes a great team. So, but here's the thing. I'll tell you the truth. If my wife was like walking around trying to disrespect me, I wouldn't tolerate that. And in times where I felt that the respect was not there, I would make it clear, like, look, no, this you're not talking to a little boy. You're talking to a grown man, and that's that. So we need to make sure we're clear about that, and the respect has to go both ways. So I think that what a lot of guys might feel, and I'm not saying that it's justified or not justified, is they might make the assumption that a certain income and status level might come with a certain type of disrespect. And let's just be honest, I've seen that disrespect. I've seen women have panels where they talk about how pathetic black men are and what black men do wrong, and kind of like the female version of a Kevin Samuels kind of conversation. And it's just not fair. It's not fair because you have to also acknowledge, remember this, that as much as you feel that your important black job, your high paying black job makes you automatically successful and makes you automatically into this wonderful catch, the white man is controlling 80-90% of that. Most black people who consider themselves successful define themselves by their job or maybe where they went to school or something like that. The white man decides all that. He decides if you're going to get the promotion or not. And one of the realities that I confronted with my wife, and we talked about this, is I said, there's places you can go where that white man will hire you and give you an opportunity to be next to him because studies show that a lot of men, they want to be next to a beautiful woman, or they love promoting certain types of people. I said, but they wouldn't want me around because I'm a threat. I'm a very serious black man who is very scary to them. I'm very smart, I'm very serious, I'm very strategic. A lot of people will be very intimidated by that. So there's certain opportunities you will always get that I won't get. But what does that do? Do I sit around and whine about it? No. What I do is I realize I confront reality. Reality is I'm not a white man. Reality is I'm not a black woman. Reality is I'm a black man. And as a black man, I have to be real clear about the specific opportunities and then specific limitations that come with what I am. Once I realized that, once I really accepted the fact that I'm a black man and that the rules are different for me, that's when I said, okay, a black man can really only get ahead and get real power in this country if he is a builder, if he builds his own institution, if he knows how to start his own business, if he knows how to make investments and own assets. If you are a black man and you want to be a king, I think you are delusional if you believe that that white man is going to invite you into his castle and make you the king. If you are a black man and you want to be a king, you must learn how to build a castle. You must build it, even if it's a tiny castle, even if it's not as big as somebody else's castle, it's still your damn castle. And I really believe that we have to confront the fact that so many black boys are distracted by sports, by basketball, football, rapping, and thugging, and all these things that they learn when they're kids. They learn from the entertainment space that leaves them incredibly disempowered when they get into the real game of global economic competition. I really think it's a problem when you consider what's happening with black families. You cannot disconnect that from the fact that 86% of black boys in their senior year of high school cannot read at grade level. Those two things are connected because most 18-year-olds eventually become 28-year-olds who eventually become 38-year-olds. So if you're behind the eight ball that much at the age of 18, then it does not surprise me when you're still behind the eight ball when you're 28. So when that little boy and that little girl both get to marriage age and she's up here, she done went to school and got the great job and he's still not reading at grade level, I don't see how that's going to really work. There's no science anywhere that says that it's going to be a natural fit for her to be with a man that's shorter than her, so to speak, shorter in terms of income, shorter in terms of education, shorter in terms of just goal setting in life accomplishment. I'm not saying that this makes the men pathetic. It means that really we don't have honest conversations with our boys, and again, this links back to that lack of mentorship. That's why I say every black man, especially every black person, period, but really I'm talking about black men. Every black man under 30 needs a set of mentors over the age of 50 who have accomplished real power. That's another thing. I believe that the reason we don't have as much power as we want is because a lot of people don't even know what power is. They don't even know how to define it. They don't know what it really means to have power. I had to meditate on what power means. What does it mean I got a great job? Does it mean that I went to school? Does it mean no? Power is it's complex, but I feel powerful because can't nobody come up in my life and move me around like I'm a little chump. Can't nobody come into my space and dictate what's going to happen in my house. I pay the bills in this place. I decide what I'm going to do that day. I decide what the agenda is going to be. And I don't decide that for the whole world, but I decide that for my world. I have a say in that world. right? And power might also come through the relationships I form. My wife makes me powerful. My friends make me powerful. You help make me powerful. I help make you powerful, right? So these relationships can make you powerful. The intellect can make you powerful. I spent many years, like Malcolm X, studying everything I could possibly study because I knew that the more knowledge I have, the more power I have to understand what's happening to me and what's happening around me. So I'm not walking around, so hey, I'm gonna go get high, yo. I'm gonna let me where the liquor at, man. Let me go get some. Keep living like that and watch how powerless you become. Well, yo, seriously, you've got threats everywhere from the police wanting to shoot you down in the street to folks wanting to lock you out of the economic system to the Democratic Party and Republican parties trying to tell you who to vote for to all these things. So if you don't show up understanding what it means for you to go get your power and you're not committed to investing in that, then you're probably not going to have that. And the other thing I learned about power that I believe is you gain more power as a black person if you're pouring into ownership of something that is yours than you'll ever get by standing behind that white man and building his business for him. That seriously, you standing behind him, standing up under him, trying to be his best friend, trying to go and get him to hire you and get him to give you opportunities, that will leave you in a space where you're gonna just feel like you're busting your butt and working your ass off, but nothing is coming out of that. You won't feel powerful that way. I think the quickest path for black male to feel power is ownership. What do you own? What do you control? You don't have to control everything, but you got to control something. And also, are you a builder? We don't have enough black boys that are trained to build things, right? Can you go and even if you can build a house? Well, if I can build a house, then I have power in that house. I can decide what the house is going to look like. I decide the shape of the house, what the what the ventilation system is going to be, what the electrical system is going to be. If I can build a car, then I get to drive that car. I get to go where I want to go. I get to decide what kind of engine is going to be in the car, what color the car is going to be, who's going to be driving that car. But in order for me to achieve the power of driving my own car, I got to have the skills to build a damn car. I got to have the courage to build the damn car. I got to have the patience to build the car. I got to have the resilience to build the car. And I want you to look around and I want you to think about people that you know who feel powerless in this world. People that just feel like the world's kicking them in the ass and they can't get anything done without masses help and they're scared to death and everything else. And I want you to look at their lives and find out what they've actually built, what they actually own, what skill they have for building, and that will tell you everything you need to know about the source of their powerlessness. If you are plugged into a system and highly dependent on a system and highly dependent on people that don't respect you and don't have your best interests at heart, you will never feel power in this country. Power requires some heavy lifting. And so I think that what happens to a lot of men, unfortunately, is I think that when you get into relationships where she's doing well and you're not where you want to be, it might be a reminder of how powerless you are. And I believe you were powerless because you had the wrong mentors. I had to go specifically find black male mentors that were gonna give me power because I ran into a lot of bitches and punks, excuse my French. I ran into a lot of punks, a lot of cowardly men who told me that I could be successful as long as you don't make the white folks mad. You best not be talking like that or you're gonna. They sounded like some runaway slaves. I kid you not. It was crazy. I was in University of Kentucky and I said, why is it that I'm meeting so many older black males who are wimps, scared of their own damn shadow? I wanted to meet men similar to the father that raised me. My father was not scared of nobody. He had a soldier's mindset, and I did meet people like that. I can name them really quick if you don't mind. A guy named W.C. Benton, who was at Ohio State. He's one of the most skilled people in the world in his field, and he was a Marine, and he was a fighter. And he said, don't let these folks walk all over you. He said, you shoot your gun until the last bullet is gone. I wrote that down in my brain. I never forgot that. I met people like Dr. George C. Frazier, who has been just extraordinary in terms of helping us understand what we got to do in order to win. He says that white folks ain't really thinking about you like that. White folks are thinking about white folks. You need to be thinking about your own people. Your families are falling apart. Your community's falling apart. You're not connecting with each other. You're not making a plan to build. That's why you're struggling. People like him, Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson, also a veteran who has been teaching powernomics for the last 50 years. People like Kenny Gamble. Kenny Gamble was an intelligent visionary who went and bought up blocks of property in Philadelphia when nobody wanted it because he said at some point white folks are going to come back. And he predicted gentrification 20, 30 years before it happens. He didn't sit back and allow himself to be a victim. He didn't do what other entertainers did. His other entertainers went out and bought big cars and fur coats with their money. He invited his friends to invest with him. They didn't want to do it because they didn't want to build anything. They didn't want to own anything. They didn't want to have a long-term vision or long-term plan. They all just wanted to live their best life. And then years later, Kenny became an incredibly wealthy man who owned some of the best property in Philadelphia because he executed his vision of ownership, which is the key to power. See, in America, and I can tell you this as an expert on finance, in America, money and wealth is power. That's power. Having resources and controlling those resources is one of the fastest pathways to power in this country. And that typically goes to builders. It goes to people that can have a vision, execute the vision, work at that vision consistently, and then next thing you know, they're able to call the shots in their space. Just like building a family. Some people think that you can pretend to have a family, or maybe you can babysit kids long enough. Think about it. To think that you can work for other people as a community and have real power is like thinking I can babysit other people's kids, and that'll be just like being a parent. No, you're not. You'll never be the parent. You're always going to be the babysitter. The minute the real parents decide they want to take their kids back, you're going to have to step to the side. The all the energy that you pour into watching these kids while their parents are off on vacation or whatever, that won't matter because when it comes time to make critical decisions about how the child's life is going to go, ain't nobody going to ask the damn babysitter. They're going to ask the mother. They're going to ask the father, the people who made the real structural foundational investment in the creation of this entity called a child. So you can't fake that. So if you want to have power in America, you need to learn how to become economic parents. You must give birth to the economic realities that you want to see. You need to learn how to go in there and create something and feed it every day, consistently dedicate your life to that business or that institution the same way a mother dedicates every second of her life to her child. If you don't do that, then you will not have power. And the reason people don't have power is because they always want to take the shortcut. Oh, I got a record deal. Now I'm rich. No, you're not. Your record label's rich. You'll be dead in a couple years, or all your money will be gone as soon as they find another Negro that they want to put on a record label. If you really want to have power in the music industry, you better learn how to start your own label, or work with other people to start a label, or own a piece of a label, or own your damn masters at least. Read your damn contracts. But if you're getting on the stage and you're just performing for people because white people love to see a black man get on stage and call himself the N-word and degrade his own community, that'll be good as long as it's good. And when it goes bad, it's gonna go bad. Anyway, let me move on. All right, so let's finish up this point, okay? And I'm sorry if I offended anybody with my language. I'm sorry, but not sorry. I just have to say this. I'm sorry, but I don't apologize for who I am. I can't do that. I'm gonna be Boyce every day. So if you like it, then you're gonna get more of it. If you don't like it, then you can go. It's okay. Just a reminder, if you are not on the text list to join this morning class, we meet every single day at 7 a.m. To talk about economics. Just text the word morning, MORNING, to the phone number 87948. So text morning to 87948, and I'll invite you. Also, if you want to join us tomorrow, we're going to do Stock Market Tuesday, and I'm going to break down stocks that I like and things like that, and answer a lot of your questions about stock market investing. I want everybody to invest in the stock market. You can do a free trial at drboycestockmarket.com. That's drboycestockmarket.com. All right. So let me finish up this point about the research on men and why some men feel weird when a woman makes more money than them. And I think it's their right to have that preference. But it's not your right to say that everybody should have that preference, right? It's your right to feel that way, but it's not your right to tell women that no one will want them because they went to school or because they make money. Like that's just a ridiculous way to look at the world. And again, I'm not making fun of the guys at the podcast because I told you I like those guys a lot. I met them, I love them. They had me on one time, and they're very friendly, very good people. But this is just incorrect, and I just have to be honest about that. Here's a few other reasons, according to research, why some men are feel awkward in these relationships. There's fear of a power imbalance. Research from the Harvard Business Review. This is business. This is a business journal. They found that in marriages where the wife earns more, couples report lower marital satisfaction and higher divorce rates. So some men believe that financial power translates into overall relationship dominance, which can be tough. Also, a study by the Journal of Marriage and Family in 2017 showed that men who earn less than their wives often experience negative social judgment, including from family and peers. So a lot of times, maybe you feel bad because you feel like other people will make fun of you because your wife is wearing the pants and she's the breadwinner. That's kind of tough. That's a real tough one. I know that there's things that my wife feels like she's supposed to do because she's the wife, and I don't know. I don't know how she would feel if I came in and I did everything that women do in a relationship. You know what I mean? I think she'd probably be happy if I cooked and cleaned, things like that. Not to say that those are jobs that women have to do, but traditionally we know how it goes, right? I think she'd probably actually appreciate the help. But I wonder, I don't know, just when you talk about certain things that might be defined as feminine, like sitting in the mirror and working on your hair for an hour or something. If I was in the mirror as much as she was, I think she'd probably be offended by that. I don't know. All right, what else? Insecurity and competition in a relationship. The Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization found that men in dual income households with higher earning wives often engage in overcompensatory spending to assert financial dominance. Whew, Lord. Um, let's see. A study at the University of Chicago found that men whose wives earn more than them are more likely to suspect infidelity, even if there's no evidence of it. That's interesting. But actually, what studies do show is that women who get up and go to work every day, if the man's at home and he's doing Mr. Mom and trying to be like completely like a modern man, if she's going to work every day, the likelihood of infidelity from the woman increases because she's because I think I'm not sure I'm not an expert on this, but I think there's like an attraction to testosterone that can kind of kick in, and the attraction to testosterone might mean that if she's at work and she's sharing these common goals with her work husband and talking to him all day and they're achieving these great things together, there's some chance that there could be a spark or an attraction. In fact, there's a lot of studies that show that people tend to fall in love with people that they work with all the time every day, and it's so which makes it kind of awkward that we kind of vilify workplace relationships because they happen all the time, right? But you have to be disciplined, of course, but still, even with that, it's going to happen. But I think again, I think everybody has a right to have whatever preference they want. I would encourage men to really understand that Black women are different. They've had a different set of experiences and a different set of outcomes, a different set of hurdles to overcome. And part of the reason I think Black people do better when we choose to really try to love each other is because we really understand each other. So if you understand what your mother went through, then you might understand, you have a good probability of understanding what your wife is going through, or what your wife might have experienced. And the same thing is true on the other side, right? My wife knows certain things about me, my experience as a Black man that I don't think a white woman would know. That's why I couldn't marry a white woman or anything like that. No disrespect to anyone else, but I wanted to marry a Black woman because it's like, we kind of get each other. We know where all of us have our share of crazy because the world is a crazy place. America has been a crazy place for Black people. So a lot of us have these mental health issues. But here's the bigger thing. This is the big point. This is something I want to leave you with. And again, I hope you'll consider this. You need help. You need help. Your relationship is one of the biggest investments you'll ever make. It's one of the biggest investments you'll ever make. And the biggest mistake people make is they don't invest in their relationships. They just hope that everything works out. I just implore you, don't make the mistake I made. I made this mistake in my 20s. I probably should have got married and started having more kids in my 20s. Because I had a great woman that I loved. I love my wife a lot, but had a great woman I loved, and we just didn't know how to properly love each other because we both had so much trauma. She'd gone through so much, I'd gone through so much. So we would just have these crazy fights over nothing. And it didn't make any sense to me because I really cared about her, but we just would fight, right? And so again, I'm happy that I met my wife, and to tell you how far back me and my wife go, she met my wife back when my wife was my friend, and she hated her. She was like she just hated her guts. So maybe she saw the future, who knows? But still, though, the point of the matter is to say that I think that if you make the connection between the fact that stable relationships generate the most wealth. Therefore, if I'm investing in my wealth, I should invest in my relationship. That, in my opinion, really should impress upon you or to get you to at least consider that, look, if I'm going to invest in you as a person, I'm going to invest the time and the energy to learn about you, to have a good relationship with you, but I'm also going to invest in the knowledge base that allows us to even have the tools required to have a good relationship. Like, I want you to really think about how many black folks there are who think they can have a stable marriage when they never even saw one growing up. How is that going to happen? What makes you, I mean, really, you never even saw on a daily basis what it looks like for a man and a woman to make decisions together. Maybe you grew up with it was you and your mama, and you never saw your mama really having to stop doing something to say, well, my husband doesn't want that. Your dad said no, so we're not going to do that today. Like I did see that. Or I would see my father just say, well, you know how your mama is. Your mama don't want us doing that, so that's not going to happen. Right? It was stuff like that that let me know that if I'm trying to build something with a woman, I'm going to have to compromise. And I want you to listen online to how many people go into relationships and expect to not have to compromise on anything, and that if you're asked to compromise, then that either makes you a simp or a pick me. I think they call the women pick me's when they compromise with men and submit to men or love men in a certain way and compliment men and feed their ego. Well, you know what? I'm a pick me and a simp when it comes to my wife, because I know that in order for this thing to work, my goal every day is to do everything I can to make sure that that woman in the other room is as happy as I can possibly make her without it compromising too much of my own integrity. I'm not going to go too far. If it gets unreasonable, then we talk about that. But for the most part, I need her to know it. I need to boost her ego. Every day I'm going to let her know how beautiful she is. Every day I'm going to compromise with her. Every day I'm going to say, what does it take for us to maintain the stability of this multi-million-dollar asset that we've created called our family? We started a business together. Marriage is a business. Marriage, I mean, it's a legal contract. That's kind of what it is. It's an economic entity like no other that you'll ever be connected to in your life for the most part. The difference is it's an intergenerational economic entity. Because if you maintain the stability of the family and you produce children out of this, then these children are going to have outcomes 50 years from now that are a direct reflection of things that you choose to do right now. And I want to go back to that point that I've made to you before, that it's really fascinating that black folks have been trained to spend more time studying how to do a good job for a white man at his company than you spend learning how to do a good job for your family and your spouse. Why would you spend more time studying how to be a good employee for a white-owned business than you spend learning how to be a good leader for a black-owned family? That is brainwashing people. You got the wrong damn education. That's what you did. You got the wrong education. They tricked you. They created your universities and HBCUs and all this other stuff to teach black people to do one thing: how to serve white people and make them wealthy. That's what they trained you to do. That's why most of these institutions, all they do is they produce black employees who 30 years down the line are pissed off because you don't work your ass off and you ain't got no wealth to show for it. That's because somebody else got the wealth. Wealth is neither created nor destroyed. You made the money. The money got made. The money came in. The money just didn't go into your pocket. It went into somebody else's pocket. So yes, you got rope-a-doped. That's what happened. You got tricked. So now that you know, now that we've unveiled the mystery, the big secret of whiteness, like a Scooby-Doo mystery, we figured out who's been stealing all the money. What are you going to do about it now? How are you going to shift your energy and shift your attention in such a direction that you're going to be able to ensure that you and your family are the beneficiaries of all of the sacrifices that you make? Well, I can tell you one shift you can is it, and I'm gonna tell you because that's the shift I've made is ain't no institution outside of this house more important than the institution we're building right here. I'm the CEO of this house. This is where I have power, and I share power with my wife. It's not a threat to me. My wife is an asset. She's not a competitor. So if you want to know where I put my time, where I put my energy, right here. I spend all the time I can learning how to be a better father, how to be a better husband, how to be a better leader. Because that also spins into how to run a better business because I do business with my wife. I do business with our son. I do business with our daughter. The youngest one, she don't want to work yet, but she coming in too. We're doing all this together because all this can connect. The family and the economics are deeply connected. The number one reason black wealth is dropping, there's two major reasons. One is student loans, because you'll go $200,000 in debt to get a $50,000 a year job. Half of all black college graduates default on their student loans. Half of all black college graduates, this is your talented 10th. They default, they can't pay their loans back. The second reason that black wealth is dropping is because of the destruction of the black family. The inability of black people to do something as simple as get married and stay married has cost you trillions of dollars in black wealth. You fix those two things, you adjust, then you'll find your outcomes will be quite different. And I can't tell you everything about what's going to make you powerful in your life, but I can tell you that much of that power starts with ownership, owning something, controlling something, building something, designing something, pouring into something where you have a say in how that works. And it's really important, I think, for the men that feel threatened and uncomfortable with women that are making more money and all this other stuff. My heart goes out to you. I'm not making fun of you and none of that. I'm really not. I get it. I totally get it. But I can tell you a lot of my power base is in this house. You know, it's not I'm not trying to go get a better job than my wife. I don't want a job because I know that man, I'm just be honest with you. I don't know. I guess I'm a race man. I guess I'm a man who has a certain reality about racism, and I don't. That's why I don't get offended by the Elon Musks and the Joe Bidens so much because I don't believe I've never believed that any of these people liked me. I've never believed that any of these people wish me well. I don't believe any of them want me to be successful. I don't believe any of them want me to compete with them. So now that I know this, I know that they don't love me, then I focus on the people who do. And I also don't fall for some of these silly games that we've been introduced to. This, integration and DEI is going to save everybody. I never believed that crap because it ain't true. So you got to build your own, black people. You got to build your own. All right. So anyway, I'm done. Thank you guys for listening. It was wonderful getting a chance to talk to you. Just a reminder, if you want to get a text notification when we meet for class in the morning, pull out your phone, text the word morning to the phone number 87948. Text morning to 87948. Also, later on tonight, my wife, Dr. Alicia, she's a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work, she's going to do her Mental Health Monday because we've learned that mental health is deeply connected to financial health. So she helped us to start the first ever Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School. There is no other Black financial therapy department anywhere. And in case you want to hear a flex on the Black Business School, we have 187,000 students worldwide, so we're getting it done. We're making it happen, and we're very successful in terms of being able to reach lots of people. So anyway, so tonight she's doing Mental Health Monday. If you want to get an invitation, just text the word love to the number 87948. So text love to 87948. And also tomorrow we're doing Stock Market Tuesday. Oh, and by the way, Dr. George Fraser, I believe he's coming in tomorrow or the next day. So I mentioned him earlier. He's a great guy. He wrote a book called Success Runs in Our Race. It is required reading, I believe, in almost every HBCU in America. He is an OG. I think he's hit 80, but to me he's going on 40, and he's one of the baddest black men ever. And these are the men and women that we need to listen to. These are the people that we need to hear from. And I'm gonna just tell you, my patience grows thin with the idiots that they put in front of us who only teach young black people how to destroy their lives. I want you to have a good life. I want you to be happy. I want you to have money in your pocket. I want you to be successful. I want your relationships to work, because when they don't, you end up out here all by yourself, and it becomes really, really hard to find your peace. So anyway, that's it, guys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you guys for listening, and you'll hear from me at different times during the day. If something comes up, I might text you guys. So feel free to come in and respond, and we're always here for you. So have a good day.